man, this is taking a much different turn than I would have thought. But honestly, I thought about this a lot, Nick, and your question made me think about this in ways that I haven't thought, because I'm like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And I think sometimes that answer stares me in the face and I still don't see it.
I lost over $324,000 trying to start an Amazon business during COVID. I nearly lost everything, my marriage, my house, everything. And I came back, and people asked me, how'd you do that? And I wonder, how did I do that? And the word that kept coming up for me is resiliency. But what does that mean? And is resiliency a trait, or is it a skill that can be taught? And if it's a skill, can we learn it? Can we build a framework to understand how we can become more resilient? And that's what this podcast is about. Welcome to the Resiliency Project podcast, where we interview successful people who've had to fall down in their lives to get back up again. And we learn about how they did that. Today's guest is Aaron Taylor, a Super Bowl champion, a college football phenom, a CBS Sports football analyst, and founder of Elite Mentals. We'll talk about that, a mental health organization. Aaron, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it, Nick. I love your story. I love what you're doing. And we're two peds in the pod, probably separated at birth. But like you, man, I'm a dude that's kind of failed my way to the top. So I really enjoy talking about what that journey was in the process of possibly helping some others do the same.
I love it. Thank you so much. And so we just jump right in here at the show. Tell me, what was your biggest failure?
Oh, man. Telling my wife what I thought actually once, that didn't go over so well. I probably shouldn't have said that. I do that on a daily basis, really. Man, there's been so many failed relationships. Honestly, I think I was 0 for 52 until I met my wife and finally was able to get out of my own way. Drugs and alcohol were a big part of my story. I've been sober for 2.5 decades.
Congratulations.
Thank you. A lot of my failures were self-imposed, but also some of them were circumstantial. So I've had a real knack of making bad situations worse, but I've also been gifted with being lucky as well and being at the right place at the right time, or encountering the right person or the mentor, hearing something that changed the course of my life significantly. So when I think about resilience for myself, I think about a childhood where at 2 years old, my parents were divorced. So I had uncertainty right out of the gate. At 5 years old, I was physically and sexually abused. At 8 years old, there was some abandonment that took place. And then from the time I was in 4th grade or 10 years old on, every 2 years we moved. And it was a new group of kids, a new school, new teachers, new rules, new everything. Making matters more difficult is that I was biracial, so I never felt black enough. I never felt white enough. I felt too black. I was made to feel too white. And I never really had a sense of who I was or that I belonged. So at the deepest part of my core of everything that I've done that's driven me, that I've had to overcome, is this nagging voice of doubt that I matter, that I'm good enough, that I'm lovable, that I have what it takes. And it's been this perpetual, lifelong process of telling Ernie, this alter ego in my head, to shut the hell up and to remember who I am, what I've created to be, and to accomplish great things, to just do the next indicated step, to focus on today where my feet are and trust the process. And that is a hell of a lot easier said than done. But when I look back and I think about resilience, that's kind of been the through thread.
Well, take me through a specific event. Where was there a time in your life where you really felt like, my God, I don't know how I come back from this?
Man, the first thing, and it involves sports, was my junior year of high school at De La Salle in Concord, California. I was a DNF student. I was smoking weed and drinking every day, and my mom was out of answers and kicked me out of the house. She brought me back after a week, asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I wanted to play pro football. She kind of pointed out to me the relationship between my choices, actions, and consequences, and how those weren't really aligned with what my goals were. And once I named it out loud, though, Nick, the invisible doors started to open. So fast forward, here I am at De La Salle, all excited. My mom finds a job right down the street from the school. She had been a pediatric ICU nurse for 30 plus years. One of her friends at work had a house that they were renting that was about 2 miles from campus. So all these fortuitous things started to come into play. And then the first day of practice happened. Now, I practiced with the team all summer, and it was clear I wasn't in shape. I didn't really have what it took. I didn't have any talent at the time, although I had a ton of potential. But that first practice was one of the hardest days in my life. I couldn't do anything right. If the play was going left, I went right. I got yelled at for everything. And it was one of those classic, old school blue collar butt chewings. And by the time I got home and walked into the house, I was in tears. And my mom gave me some time to calm down. She comes in, said, "Hey, how did practice go?" And I said, "It went awful." I said, I'm sorry. I know we moved here, but I can't do what I just did again. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm not going back." And she said, "Son, I don't care if you want to play football or not, but I think you do. And you've got to figure out if what you want is worth the price that you might have to pay." So she said, "You need to think about that. Tomorrow morning, I'll make your breakfast, and if you get up and have breakfast, I'll know the decision that you made. And if you don't, I'll also know the decision that you made, and I'll never mention a word to you." And she shut the door. Man, Nick, tell you what, brother, I wish you could have seen me sitting on the edge of that bed, because I was terrified. Every single thing in my body had a doubt about my ability to do and endure what it was that I had just experienced. And beyond that, I didn't even know if I wanted to do it because of what it might cost. Is this my dream? I said I wanted to play pro football, but did I really mean that? So I didn't sleep a whole lot that night, but somehow, some way, and this is the part where I get emotional, like I just got up and I went back to practice. And every single time, I tell this story a lot, I get emotional because I went back to practice, and guess what happened? I got my ass chewed again. And the play went left, and I went right, and the play went right, and I went left. But I made a block or two. And then I went back the next practice that afternoon. I got my ass chewed again, but I made a couple more blocks. And then I made a couple more blocks. And I made a couple more blocks. And as it turns out, I was pretty damn good at football. I just didn't know it. And I think about that moment on the edge of the bed and how much doubt I had, because I was this close to throwing everything away, of going to Notre Dame and meeting lifelong friends and being a college graduate, of being drafted to Green Bay and winning a Super Bowl and being on the field blocking for Brett Favre for 2 of his 3 MVP years, being a free agent, moving to San Diego, which is where I met my wife, and I have these 3 beautiful kids in this dream life where I'm 53 and on freaking scholarship. I think about that, being on this podcast and being able to take the most despicable, wretched, hardest moments of my life have somehow, through spiritual alchemy, become the most valuable pieces of gold that I've gotten in my life. To be able to share those, not only for my benefit, because I get to retouch that, not only for my children's benefit, to help them understand the importance of how, if you want it all, you got to be willing to risk it all. And that the gold lies behind the places that we're afraid or unwilling to go, that I can share those lessons, because those were the last things that I would have wanted, but it was the very thing that I needed. And it's just been remarkable in my life that that process has happened over and over and over and over again to me. It's always just as hard, but the answer is always the same. And somehow, some way, man, I've been given a gift. Like, that's the God-given gift I've been, that's just in me. And I don't know where it came from. I just have it. And I have a lot of friends that don't, and people that struggle that don't have it. So I believe that we all have it. And my job is just to remind people that hope is a verb. It takes.
I love that.
And we have to be willing to do the things we're afraid or unwilling to be able to push through that fear, which is just a veil, and take advantage of untold riches that are waiting on us.
Wow. There's so much there. I want to get into it, but I'm reminded first of a Napoleon Hill story, 3 Feet from Gold. He tells a story about this gold mine out west, and these folks they drill down and they hit a vein, and they think, oh, it's a bonanza, so they keep drilling further down. right? They keep drilling, sort of up and down, right? Just vertically. And they don't find any more gold. There's no more. So they think, okay, well, this thing's worthless. So they sell it for $1 for, a song to a father and son. And what they know is that gold actually, the veins kind of go all over the place. They aren't linear. So they went down to where they first hit gold, and then they just went 3 feet to the left, 3 feet to the right. They found all the gold, all of it. 3 feet away from the people that were there, but they couldn't see it. So take me back to that moment. You're sitting on that bed. There's so much doubt, right? You don't have any evidence that this is going to be successful, just like those gold miners. They have no evidence that there's any more gold left, but they keep digging. They keep looking. What kept you searching? What allowed you to get past those doubts to say, I'm going to go back to practice every day and get my ass handed to me because I want this? What was that got rid of those doubts?
Man, that's a really good question. It's one I've thought about, and I think it's so difficult to answer, but it's so compelling because it really is at the crux of what my secret sauce has been personally. And I don't know, man. That's the honest answer. I don't know what it is. I sincerely believe that fear and faith both require you to believe in something.
Yep.
There's been a part of me that has been able to take these blind leaps of faith where it's like, excuse my language, but fuck it, and cannonball into the deep end and to see what happens. But I also was 15 years old. And to your point, there was no evidence, like faith without, evidence, or I'm screwing that quote up, butchered that one terribly. But the lack of evidence piece requires a faith of some sort. And man, I've been there so many times where I just doubted and I didn't know what it was. But I think where I'm not conscious of it at the time, that there's always some voice that I listen to that encourages me to take a step, to go for it, to do it. And when I can sit still enough and quiet the noise, and I'm honest enough with myself, it comes from this place inside me that I trust implicitly. And I had this dude once that, was a media trainer, a media coach, and he was talking about viral comments, and he gave me this model about the 3 vaults that I've used in some of the retreat work that I've done for a long time. He said, most of us, live in our first vault. It's our head, our thoughts, the data and facts. Then there's a second vault that's kind of here on our chest. And, these are the stories that we share and the stories that we tell, ourselves about the world and how it works and operates. These are in the media context, defense, and run game win championships. You can't turn the football over, those sort of things. He said, but there's this third vault that most of us don't know that we have, and even fewer of us need or know how to access. He said, in the media context, that's where our viral comments come from, things we've never thought about or said before, but just float up. And I started thinking about that place being our intuition. Now I've got my hands on my stomach like the Buddha, and we've got to go through these first 2 vaults to drop down into that third one. And this is my experience, to be able to tap into our joy, to be able to tap into our intuition, to those voices, those nudges, to whatever our concept of a higher power is, because that's where the gold is. And I think for me, when I sit still and when I've been at those places where I just doubted and there's no way this is going to work out, I want to turn around and run for the hills, that there's some voice that I'm able to access and listen to that reminds me, you got this. You can do this, that you're going to be okay, even if it doesn't work out. Because I'll say this, as it relates to a higher power and faith for me, I think I've had this misconception that I wanted God to take care of me. Like, I want to go sit on God's knee and he gives me a sucker and pats me on the head and says, everything's going to be okay, where I avoid pain and don't have to experience any sort of discomfort. From that standpoint, I got zero faith in the big man because he has let my ass down over and over and over. But it's me that has the wrong gauge. It's like I've always wanted to see if God measures up, but I've been using the wrong tape measure, because when I measure the faith of my higher power by how he's cared for me, he's never let me down. Even in the darkest places of my life, sitting on the edge of the bed and walking into my first recovery room, all of the failed relationships, all of those physical and emotional abuse situations that I was in, all of those served me in my greatest good, even though those were the last things I would have asked for. Even though it didn't look like it, my life wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me. And God has always cared for me. And where I've been wrong is I've been wanting him to take care of me. I want to be pain free. I solve for safety and I want to be pain free, right? Seek pleasure, avoid pain. That sounds like a pretty good idea to me, even though I know that's a faulty equation. And this all gets back to, in those darkest moments, how do I lash myself to the mast? I think it's a faith that's there that I'm not even aware is there at times. But it does resist or resolve and live in my third vault. And I think that's what those opportunities do is they create opportunities for that moment for us to listen to something that's bigger than ourselves, that to help us walk through those fears.
Well, so this reminds me of another story. A man is drowning, and he starts praying to God for someone to rescue him. And along comes a little dinghy, and the people in the dinghy say, "Hey, you need help?" And he says, "No, God's going to save me." He continues to pray. A larger boat comes. He says, "No, God's going to save me." And now a frigate comes. He says, "No, listen, God's going to save me." A man drowns. He sees God. He says, "God, why didn't you save me?" He said, "I sent you 3 ships." So for me, my question to you, right, is it's obvious that you have this faith, right? But this third vault, for a time, I'm certain, must have been closed. So what was it for you that kind of opened up your eyes to say, aha, I've been thinking about this wrong, and that my faith can actually carry me here if I just change that mindset? What was that aha moment for you?
Man, I don't know if there was a singular aha moment, and this has been a lifelong struggle, man, because I like what I like, and I like to take back control, and I mean, it's a daily battle. That I super glue the third vault shut, and I have to work really hard to make sure that I stay open. But my friendships tend to lean that way, where they involve people, where I can have those sort of third vault conversations where we do get real and do get vulnerable, and we laugh our asses off too. But there is a sequential ordering to it. And again, I think hope is a verb in my actions, between my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions, my words, when they're in alignment of, I've been a seeker my whole life, man. And I think those of us that have been through the meat grinder are kind of that way. I've heard it said that like religion is for those that want to get to heaven, spirituality is for those, religion is for those. I've heard it said before that religion is for those that want to avoid hell, and spirituality is for those that have already been there. And I think for those of us that have been in a meat grinder, there's this place where I've been a seeker to find some sort of relief. And whether or not I gave it the credit because it wasn't, a helicopter, when a frigate and a dinghy and all these other vessels started showing up, that somehow, some way, and I think we all have that. It looks different. We call them different names, and I'm agnostic in that respect to, do you, man, whatever that looks like for you, find something greater than yourself to believe in that can guide you. And man, this has taken a much different turn than I would have thought. But honestly, I thought about this a lot, Nick, and your question made me think about this in ways that I haven't thought, because I'm like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And I think sometimes that answer stares me in the face and I still don't see it.
But that's the greatest part about life, right? It's that discovery. It's that understanding that there's always more. And if we keep going, we'll just discover more. So, Aaron, we jumped right in. So tell us about you. You obviously had an amazing career in the NFL. What are you up to now? What's going on in your life?
Man, I'm a dad, a husband. I've got kids that are playing international sports. So we've been in and out of getting our passport stamped all spring and fall.
Okay.
Part of my legacy is creating the Joe Moore Award, which celebrates the most outstanding offensive line unit in college football. Joe Moore was my college coach and probably taught me more about belief and resilience than anybody on the planet. So it's much more than just a big college football trophy and 5 tough ass dudes. It celebrates teamwork and resilience, which I think are 2 of the fundamental values of all great societal endeavors, including our sport. We've got a YouTube channel and some content that we're producing that's fun football stuff, but also has some meaning. I work with an organization called Radical Hope, which does a great job of doing 4-week programs on 90 plus colleges, universities, and sports teams worldwide. It's some of the best content that I've ever seen because what we're seeing is young people lack resilience and an ability to deal with life on life's terms. It's tough and they don't feel connected. Those are the 2 big things, connections and resilience. And this program is the best I've ever seen to be able to empower young people to learn to do those things, to learn to connect and to have the soft and hard skills that are required to do that. And Elite Mentals is one of the many ways that I've looked at and used to justify how I can be a good teammate to other people, man. I'm living my dream life, Nick. If you gave me a wand to wave to ask for anything different or I could change anything about any aspect of my life, I wouldn't do it. It's a dream life. Now, it doesn't mean that my wife doesn't piss me off and my kids don't frustrate me and I should be making more money and what's happening around the world and dun, dun, dun. All of that happens. But there's also, again, coming back to this faith that, like, he's got it and I don't need to worry about it. And that's, again, easier said than done. But the things that have happened to me have happened for me. And that's why I wouldn't want to change them because they're so valuable as they are.
So let me ask you, because I'm sure some of our listeners, probably many of our listeners, have kids that are playing sports, and that's hard, right? I struggle with that myself with my daughter. She's a competitive gymnast, and she gets down on herself and wants to quit and give up. And with your kids, playing internationally, I'm sure they face challenges. What advice have you given to them to push through, to keep with it and stick with it? And what advice would you give to parents that are dealing with that with their kids?
Man, it's tough. My kids are in the mix, in they've been lucky enough to be given some God-given talent. So them making it, I don't think has ever been one of their personal challenges, but believing they had what it took to elevate and play up, if you will, at different respective age groups. That's been a constant lifelong battle, especially for my middle, who is built like me and been a big puppy, but in the water with grown men with mustaches and back hair at 15, 16 years old. It's like you start questioning your business decisions on what you're doing. I think the flaw that I have as a parent is that I try to TED talk my kids too much, that the things that I learned for 50 years, I try to distill in the car ride home from the game or home from school or in a single conversation. And I had a tennis instructor once that used to do that as an instructor, and she would see these parents that would pepper their kids with questions and it would burn them out and they would quit. And she had this model of how to engage with your kids around sports. And the first one was when they get in the car, hey, did you have fun? And just by asking that question, it reinforces that the point isn't to win or lose, it's to enjoy the game and the process. If you want to talk a level deeper and they've given you permission and indicated that they're in a talkative mood, what is it that you feel allowed you to win or the other team to win? If you were to play this game differently, what would you do next time? And there was a fourth one that I'm completely forgetting, but like those sort of open-ended questions that give them the opportunity to engage or not, that removes the judgment. Because where I fail is I've got very strong beliefs about what I think should be happening. And I call that shoulding on myself. And I should on myself all the time. And I think a lot of other parents do too. But I have to remind myself that my story's done. That I've written every sentence, I put that final period and I close the book and my book's on the shelf. Do I love my children enough to allow them to be themselves and write their own story? Did they ask? Did they ask me what I thought or what I would do? Have I ever asked them how I can be supportive of them? I'll share this story with you. At 12 years old, my oldest boy's in the pool. He plays water polo. And that's an age where they're just beyond splash ball and they're starting to become competitive. But, everybody still kind of follows the ball and that sort of thing. And, I'd bark out, come swim, great effort, close, let's go, Jet. And would give all these commands, and purely from the purest place in my heart for his sake, right? He came to me after the game and said, Dad, I don't want to hear your voice. I don't like it. It's distracting. It's booming. We can all hear you. I don't like it. I said, well, son, I'm doing this because I'm doing it for you. He said, then if you're doing it for me, then don't do it. Okay. Man, Nick, he checked my ass against the glass in a way that I'd never been checked. And what I realized was I wanted everybody to know that I was that kid's father and what my standard was. And I was doing all this passive aggressive, shit where I'm putting my stuff on him. And so everybody can hear, this college football Hall of Famer. But what he needed was to be able to focus. And I've told him so many times how proud I was of him for being able to speak up and advocate for himself, because he made me a better dad in that moment. And I think the mistake that many parents make is that we feel it's our job and our responsibility to help them accomplish their dreams. And that's not the case. Our job is to get out of the way and to support them in the way that they want and need. And sometimes as a parent with young ones, you got to make those calls. I get that. But there's an age where the most loving thing to do is to let go and to sit back and watch. And it's excruciating. But when I'm at best as a parent from my children, that's what I'm doing. And the other 99% of the time, I've got room to improve and grow.
I mean, absolutely amazing, Aaron. Thank you so much. So the two final questions here. We always ask our previous guest to ask the next guest a question. And this comes from probably one of your friends over at CBS. Tiki Barber asked, what are you scared of and why haven't you tried it?
Stand-up comedy. It is the most frightening thing I can ever think about. Again, the core of my being is acceptance and not feeling good enough. And when you're on stage as a comedian, you get instant feedback about whether or not your ideas worked or not. Now, just for me to say and clarify that it's your ideas that work or not versus whether you're good or not is growth in and of itself. So I've committed to doing a stand-up comedy act, at a, open mic night within the next 12 months. Next Wednesday, I'm signing myself up for an improv class. That's going to be how I put my toe in. And it's something I've got to do. I've got a quick wit. It's getting a little bit duller as I get older. I use my head as a battering ram, but I think I've got some good ideas, and I've certainly got enough people that will laugh even if it's not funny. My kids do it every day. So that's one of the things that I've been afraid of and is going to take a tremendous amount of courage to do. But man, it's almost like and that's the thing. And I shared this before. Somebody once asked me, if you could only tell your children one thing, what would it be? One piece of advice. And it was this, that the goal in our lives lies just beyond where we're afraid or unwilling to go. And the way that we mine that gold is with courage, willingness, and acceptance. So it's about action. So I tend to lean into the things that I'm afraid of. They're scary. I certainly procrastinate with the best of them, but there's things that tap me on the shoulder, and stand-up comedy is one of them. So look for me to kill it or bomb here in the next 12 months.
All right, listen, let's hope you're at the Improv in New York. I'm coming to see you real soon.
I love it.
Aaron, final question that we ask everyone. So what does resilience mean to you? What does that word mean?
An ability to find the way no matter what. An ability.
I think that's
Yeah.
That's so important. And it's so important to have faith and belief that it's going to happen. Aaron, I think we learned a ton today about overcoming self-doubt, really tapping into that spiritual belief and taking those leaps of faith to push through and build that resiliency. I appreciate you so much for sharing and being so vulnerable. Thank you so much, Aaron Taylor. Thank you for being with us here on the Resiliency Project podcast. Guys, I don't know what else we can say about this episode. This was super special. I enjoyed this so much. I hope you guys all got a ton out of it. Until next time, keep going. Remember, time is undefeated. Thanks for joining us.